We don't do it for the awards or the recognition. We do it because we love what we do. But obviously, it was really touching to be recognized by my peers in that setting. And, I do it because I love my community, and anything beyond that is kind of a cherry on top. A lot of the times it's not the city leading something, but the city being at the table and being a partner and helping to facilitate. Mayors don't have a lot of power, but we can kind of set the tone and the mood in town. And I've really tried to be a champion just for that positive mindset.
Welcome to Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. I'm your host, Dave Martin. With me is our guest on this episode, the mayor of Nevada, Iowa, Brett Barker. Welcome, Brett.
Thanks for having me, David.
You're welcome. And with me, as always, is my co-host, the mayor of Dubuque, and the president of the Iowa League of Cities, Mayor Brad Cavanagh. Brad, welcome.
Good to see you both.
Good to see you both. So I want to start with something that you just recently received, Brett, Mayor Barker. You are the recipient of the Rhonda Woods Smith Award for excellence as mayor of Nevada. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you, and talk a little bit about the Main Street Nevada program. Tell me about that.
Yeah, happy to. So, Main Street Nevada is something we're really proud of. Iowa in general does a really great job with Main Street. They're one of the leading programs in Main Street America. And Nevada actually started talking about joining the Main Street program in the 1980s. So when we went to them about 2018, 2019 and started talking to Main Street again, they basically said, "Are you serious this time?" Because we've heard this before from Nevada. But we were accepted in the program in 2019. And honestly, it's really competitive process. You're up against some amazing cities, and one of our round was Decorah. And I think Decorah has a really great reputation in the state. So I joked around and said it was like Lion King when they say Mufasa, and you kind of shudder because the competition there going up against Decorah to get into the program. And we were accepted, and it's just been transformative. So in the last 5 years, we've had a tremendous change in our Main Street. We're just getting started. There's a lot more work to do, but you're talking about upper story housing. You're talking about developing retail storefronts, placemaking. And what's really heartwarming to me is if you go outside on a day that's at all nice around the lunch hour, you're going to see people just filling all the seating outside. They're eating lunch. They're enjoying their time together. On weekend afternoons, you'll see families eating ice cream out there. And it's just a stark change from before. Our Main Street was a lot more desolate. So we're rehabbing our buildings. We're bringing businesses. We're redoing the upper story housing, which is a city above a city. If you think about your upper story, and a lot of those are vacant in our main streets. And what that does is it helps alleviate our housing shortages that we have across the state, but it also gives you built-in retail customers for your Main Street businesses to help keep your restaurants and other businesses alive. So it's been something we've really focused on. I say people judge a community by the Main Street. They go through, if they're thinking about bringing a business there or bringing their family there, they're going to go through your Main Street. And if it looks like you don't care, they're going to have a really negative view of your community. If it looks like you take pride in your Main Street, it really sets the tone for the rest of your community. So that's one reason why we're really proud of it, why we worked hard on it. It really is the heartbeat. And, as far as the award goes, Mayor Cavanagh will tell you this too. We don't do it for the awards or the recognition. We do it because we love what we do. But obviously, it was really touching to be recognized by my peers in that setting. And, I do it because I love my community, and anything beyond that is kind of a cherry on top.
Well, you did have a pretty broad smile on your face when you took the stage to receive the award. So it clearly meant something to you. Mayor Cavanagh, Brad, did he have some stiff competition looking across the state of Iowa?
There were other people who were nominated for that award. I was on the awards committee this year. And but what I will say is that it was there were quite a few very strong nomination letters for Mayor Barker. I mean, he's done an incredible job in Nevada, and everybody knows it. I mean, they recognize the work that he's done. And in particular, the people that were closest to you, Brett. I mean, people that are around you recognize the work that you're doing. And I think that speaks very highly of a person and a public servant and the work that you do.
Appreciate that.
So what's going on in Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I joke around that that's the hardest question to answer because you don't even know where to start because there's so much going on.
We're talking about the show is called Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. So talk about good government that you're leading in Nevada.
Yeah. And so a lot of it comes down to partnerships, and I underline the word partnership because, a lot of the times it's not the city leading something, but the city being at the table and being a partner and helping to facilitate. So one thing we've worked on very strongly, I mentioned housing earlier, in 2015, we had a community summit that identified housing as our number one challenge. And we have really been laser focused on that. And it takes a really, really long time to get a housing pipeline going. There's a lot of steps that have to take place. And we also knew that it's all types of housing. It's rental, it's single family, it's moderate income, it's higher income, it's all the above. So, we've really chased that. And I talked about Upper Story on our Main Street. Our county hospital moved and vacated a building. And so that could have been an albatross. It's adjacent to our Main Street. That's going to be 60 housing units for rental. We've done multiple housing developments. We've worked with our county for Homes for Iowa for low and moderate income. We've done a lot of workforce housing, which honestly is kind of the biggest gap, in my opinion, is that workforce housing. When you look at our major employers, we had a housing developer in town, and one of our biggest employers said that 9% of their employees live in Nevada, many of which want to, but there's just a shortage. And so when there's that many employers that tell you the same thing, it tells you that there's a need. And so workforce housing is a big thing. And then the upper end too, because if people step up a level into housing as their families grow or they have more means, it opens up housing in the pipeline. So we know we can't build housing as affordably as we would like to brand new. But if people step up and opens up other housing stock, then there's room for other people to buy homes in the community. So housing is one thing we've worked on. Economic development in general, something I'm really passionate about. That's where kind of everything starts, because if your local economy is strong, then you can do a lot more as a community. Then you can build your bike trails, quality of life things. I mean, everything else comes from there. So we've really focused on industrial growth and, quite frankly, really outpunch our weight class in industrial development. I'd put us up against anybody else. We've got a very strong industrial base. And last summer in 2023, Nevada accounted for the majority of economic development projects in the pipeline for Boone and Story counties combined. And that's how active the prospects were in our community. And I think it says a lot about how much we try to be friendly to our businesses. We try to really help support them and make it a place that they can prosper. And it's not only new businesses, it's also expansion. A lot of our employers have actually expanded. So our largest employers, three of our largest employers have all expanded in our community in the last few years. And I think that says a lot too. So not only are we bringing new folks to town, but we're expanding what's there. And we've really also focused on renewable energy. We know Iowa feeds and fuels the world. And so we have 2 ethanol plants in our community, which I don't think there's many that can say that. And not only that, but we're doing renewable natural gas, which is a new process. And, have looked at other things like hydrogen and other future fuels that we can use in the community and also to help fuel throughout the Midwest.
So, Brett, I have a question for you about this, because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about just the amount of projects and initiatives that you have going on right now and everything that's happening. So when that happens in a community, especially the size of Nevada, I mean, you're not like the biggest city in Iowa, right? So when you have all this change, it's happening at a really quick pace. Sometimes it's difficult to get everybody on board in the community. How do you get, community members who are just trying to live their life and be there in Nevada and try to, have a good life for their family? How are they coming along for this ride? How are they leading this in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and I think, people ask, if there's one thing that I'd be most proud of my term at city office when the time comes to step away would be, and that's just the entire mentality of the community. I think mayors don't have a lot of power, but we can kind of set the tone and the mood in town. And I've really tried to be a champion just for that positive mindset. And I think that's really, been transformative in the community, just the mindset in general, and getting everybody on the same page, rowing in the same direction. The community leadership all has that positive vision. And I think that's, you hit on something too, because you would hear people say we're just a bedroom community, but we're not. I mean, there's a lot more to Nevada than being a bedroom community. And I think really selling the community, even to itself, and the people that have been there the longest, quite frankly, can sometimes be the hardest part, because they may not see all of the great things that are going on, because, and that's one thing too. Our Iowa communities, we are competing against each other. So, Ames and Iowa State might be attracting someone to the area, but maybe they go, oh, Ames is too big, or I don't want to live in the college town, or housing costs are too high, or for whatever reason, they start looking at the neighboring communities in the region. And not to speak negatively of anybody else, but I think we're one of the few that has that full package where you have the vibrant Main Street, you have the strong school system, you have the great trail system and recreational opportunities, you have that community feel. There are communities nearby that have pieces of that, but not a lot of them have all and check all those boxes. So that's something that we're really proud of. And, I talked about quality of life. Millennials in particular, you joke around, want breweries and bike trails. I think we hear that stereotype all the time. And a lot of that's true. They want somewhere that has something going on. They don't want just someplace they can go home at night and not have those things to do. And so Nevada is one of the only communities I know of with a publicly voted trail levy. So we have a levy dedicated to trail development and maintenance. And so you'll see people out there all the time in outdoor recreation. We have what I would consider one of the best outdoor recreation facilities in the entire central Iowa region in our SCORE complex. And that predates me, and that goes back to the 90s and the vision the community leaders had back then. But we just completed that park with an indoor recreation center that kind of went by SCORE Indoor, but it's the Nevada Fieldhouse. And so our mentality there was an indoor city park where you have places in bad weather where people can come inside, and there's a playground, which actually the most popular thing in there is the indoor playground, where families can just come and let their kids play, run off energy, parents can socialize. And so we really thought about, wellness is about movement and it's about socializing. So, try to maximize that just like a city park. So yes, there's courts, there's turf, there's track, playground, but it's been a huge popular thing and really is an economic development driver. We've had people come look at our community because of that. We've had housing developers look at our community because of that. Industrial employers look at the community because of that. And other communities in Iowa are now coming to look at it because they want to do something similar.
I have a question for both mayors. Both of you have sort of touched on this a little bit, and you sit at the top of the sort of the pyramid of government in your respective cities. And you see things that everybody does that most people don't see. You're aware of what's going on with the Parks Department, with the Police Department, with the economic development, with the library. How do you sell your agenda to the people in your cities? Whichever mayor wants to go first can.
Yeah, I mean, I would say mayors in Iowa, really, most of us, there are a few exceptions that are a strong mayor, but most mayors in Iowa have no power if you can't collaborate and build partnerships and have strong relationships. So unless you can get other stakeholders on the same page, unless you can sell your vision, and unless you have a supportive city council and city staff, you won't be effective at all. So there are mayors that come in like a bull in a china shop thinking they're just going to bully their way around. They get nothing done because they don't have that support. I don't get to vote. I don't get to manage a budget. I don't get to spend money. All of that comes from other people that have that power. So the power of the mayor is kind of that bully pulpit of getting up there and selling your vision and having that. So we've been successful because our stakeholders from Main Street, Nevada Economic Development, the hospital, on and on and on. And one example of that's our Nevada publication. Our local newspaper is dying, quite frankly. I think a lot of us can say that. And we were all doing our own thing. The city had a photocopied newsletter and a water bill. The school was doing something. We were all doing something. But now we have a nice publication called Our Nevada that we all put money into and people actually read. And they keep up with things. It's a great thing. It's in addition to all the digital communication that we've added. But that's just the way that we all work together on the same page with the same goals. And ultimately, how I'm able to balance it, all of this is a strong city staff and empowering them and having a supportive city council that's on the same page.
Brad,
yeah,
you want to feel that one? How do you sell your agenda?
I would say, a lot of the same for starters, but at the same time, I think you said something earlier in something you were talking about earlier in this conversation, Brett, and you were talking about being the cheerleader. And I think that's a big part of this too. While we don't have the ability to just come in and dictate things, which I think is actually very, very good. I think it's good for democracy that we have to collaborate in that way. But we also, I think, set the tone in a way that everybody notices. We're the ones that oftentimes they call us the face of the city. And I think it's true. We land in the paper a lot. People know who we are. What we say matters. It has a lot of weight. And if you're using that opportunity to set a positive tone, that when a lot of what we think of as politics today is not positive in people's minds, it really does. It shows. And I think people notice it and they recognize that. And I think when you're able to do that, you can do a lot of the things that Brett is talking about and be able to get people to come along fairly easily for this ride of all the fun, great things that you want to provide for your city and the things you want to build and all that. I think it's a lot easier to do when you have the right attitude to set the tone.
All right, then. Now we're going to get into the heart of your philosophy of government and leading Nevada. We're going to find out a little bit about you that's not in the press. All right, you ready? First question. Tell me what makes Nevada a real Iowa city.
A real Iowa city. I mean, I think a lot of it's the people. I mean, that's one thing Iowans, you say Iowa nice, that's real. That's one reason why I wanted to raise my family in Iowa. I didn't grow up in Iowa. My wife didn't grow up in Iowa. We both went to the University of Iowa. And you just really learn to appreciate the quality of the people here, the great quality of life. It's safe. People look out for each other. And I would say Nevada has that just like everybody else.
All right. It's the people that make Nevada special.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Brett, when you think of Nevada and you think of the local government there, what does good government look like in Nevada?
Yeah, I think it's being responsive to the public. It's listening as much as you can. And, people, as you know, mayors will get accused for the good. We're scapegoats for the bad. It's oftentimes we don't sell ourselves as much on the good as we could either. But I think it's listening to people, making sure you're listening to everybody and every voice. And it's also making sure you're collaborative. So we already talked about that, but we have a Vision 2040 plan that we put together with all of our stakeholders in the community. We had a huge public survey. We had focus groups. We even took it to do little subgroups on voices we thought we might miss in a bigger survey. So we said, minority group. We said families with kids. We did one with seniors, and there were 5 or 6 of those groups that we didn't want to get lost in a survey that had thousands of responses in case there was a segment of the population whose needs weren't being met. But that Vision 2040 plan isn't just a strategic plan that goes on the shelf that a lot of people might forget about. It's something that we actively use. We meet quarterly to keep each other accountable on making progress through that plan. And that's something that our community started in the 90s with what they called Vision 2040. And yes, our eye doctors in town remind us that 2040 is not as good as 2020, but we still named it 2040 anyway, because it really is it's a time frame. What's our 20-year plan? Where do we see ourselves in the year 2040? And the fact that we use that's been key. And that really was struck home to me when we went to review it in 2015 and said, what's left? Because the community actually used it. And you could go through that plan and see all the check marks of things that had been checked off. And so, that was really eye-opening to me as a community leader, that's why Nevada had been set up for such great success, was they'd actually followed through on the plan. So we're doing that again with the Vision 2040 plan. So I would say, that's a real key piece of our good governance has been that planning.
What do you think your legacy is going to be as your term as mayor of Nevada sort of comes to an end, at least the first chapter?
Yeah, and I think for me, it's making Nevada proud of Nevada, and working with everybody in that positive way. Like I said, what I really want to leave behind is that people say that, I was a positive force in Nevada that really left a mark on those things. And so, I think we've made a ton of progress. What I'm excited about is that'll continue after me, because it's about really building those partnerships, and that will continue. We've got great people in place, and I'm not going to step away entirely from community things. There's a lot of other things I'll be able to stay part of that I'm excited about as well.
Is it going to be hard to watch somebody else be mayor of Nevada after you and go, I can't believe you did that?
It'll be different, but I think what's important to know is, whoever it is, I want to support them. Okay. I want to be supportive. They may make different decisions than me at times, but I think it's important having been in those shoes, you want to be as supportive as you can, especially publicly, because I think, we all do it for the right reason. I don't know anybody that gets into it for the wrong reasons. And I think supporting them as you hand the baton is important. And also, hopefully it's somebody that has that same big picture vision, that sees where we've been going as a community and is going to try to be a positive force. And I really think it'll be somebody like that, because I think that's what the community is looking for. There have been election after election, you see those people with a positive vision getting elected, and I think that'll continue.
Okay.
All right. So one more great thing about Nevada we need to talk about. You're talking to somebody else who's not from there, somebody from somewhere else in Iowa, another place in the country. Where's your favorite place in Nevada that you want to send them to?
Oh gosh, favorite place. Obviously I've talked a lot about the Main Street, so probably someplace there. We have a great bakery, Bricktown Bakery, excellent donuts. They opened a few years ago. Everywhere I went, there were donuts for a while, and eventually I decided I had to be careful or I'd have to buy a new wardrobe because it's so good. And we've got more restaurants that have followed them. We have a brewery that's opening next month. Part of the Vision 2040 plan was attracting microbrewery, so we'll be able to check that box next month. So just our Main Street in general is what I would answer.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. So an award-winning mayor of the winner of the Iowa League of Cities, the Iowa League of Cities Rhonda Wood Smith Award. We have just been talking with the mayor of Nevada, Brett Barker. Thanks for the insight. Thanks for the time. Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you both.
And as always, thanks to my co-host, Brad Cavanagh, the mayor of Dubuque and the president of the Iowa League of Cities. I hope you learned something.
I always do.
You're going to learn something in every one of these shows, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
You're taking notes and you're passing your notes around. Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for talking. And we will see you next time on Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. That's our show. Thanks for listening. Join us again right here for the next episode of Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. Make sure you like us and share us with your friends. Follow us on Facebook. Leading Iowa is a Valley Park production in association with the Iowa League of Cities. The show is executive produced by Katie Wheeler and Brad Cavanagh for the Iowa League of Cities. Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder are executive producers for Valley Park Productions. Our show is edited and produced by Jason Stershic.